Welcome back, everyone, to Sip and Talk. Today we're diving into something pretty interesting. It's where culture and, well, global politics really smash together.
Oh, definitely. And I have to say, I came into this one a little hot under the collar, actually. You know our friend Micky?
Yeah. What did Micky do now?
He sent me this Chinese patriotic song, which, okay, fine. But he even added English subtitles, so I'd get the full picture.
Thoughtful of him, I guess.
Well, I read them. And honestly, it felt like a punch. They were singing about the U.S. being a paper tiger.
A paper tiger? Are you sure it wasn't some, theme song for a new Chinese zoo exhibit, the fierce paper tiger enclosure?
I wish. No, this was way wilder than anything you'd hear at a zoo. It was this super intense anthem, and they were literally singing, "We must liberate Taiwan."
Wow, okay.
That's
quite direct.
I was floored. Since when does planning a potential invasion come with its own, official soundtrack? If we're the paper tiger, then honestly, they're sounding like the world's most aggressively marketed paper chickens right now.
Maybe they think singing loudly solves international disputes. A bit of karaoke diplomacy.
Huh. Well, if that's their strategy, they should audition for, The Voice. Strategic edition. Let the global judges listen, and then just nobody turns their chair.
That's quite a picture. Okay, but let's try not to get sucked into the emotional reaction, which is kind of the point of this music, right?
Right.
Today, let's step back. Let's analyze this whole thing. Why are we seeing this explosion of really aggressive, patriotic songs from China, often pushed by state media? And crucially, why is the rest of the world hearing it and feeling, frankly, creeped out or even scared instead of impressed?
That's the question, isn't it? Because the tunes themselves, some of them are catchy, they tap into that national pride thing, but the lyrics, once you translate them, wow, they're increasingly about taking territory, about confrontation.
So is it real confidence, like cultural swagger?
Mm-hmm.
Or is it something else, like deep down national anxiety that needs this constant aggressive self-talk?
Exactly. Are they genuinely feeling strong, or are they trying to convince themselves? It makes you wonder.
What's next, right? Are we going to get a song called, 2035 Go to America, picturing a giant bridge across the Pacific?
With the way things are going, I wouldn't actually be surprised.
So today on Sip and Talk, we're getting into this. When patriotism becomes a source of fear for China's neighbors.
And we're going to try and look at this objectively, from an international angle, using the facts, what people are reporting, how this stuff is being received.
Because when music stops sounding like, culture and starts sounding like troops marching, well, you need to understand what the strategy is behind it.
We need to unpack it. Is this message really for the outside world, or is it more about managing feelings inside China, like a big state-sponsored group therapy session set to music?
How we answer that changes how we should react, right?
Definitely. It tells us how seriously to take the noise. #2, the anatomy of propaganda music and nationalism.
Okay, so let's break down how this works. We need a framework here, because analysts are pretty clear. These aren't just, random pop songs people wrote in their basement.
No, not at all. This is structured stuff. It's political communication. It's designed to get certain results, change how people think or feel.
Right. And when experts look at this kind of intense nationalist talk, whether it's in songs or state media or those short videos you see, everywhere they see patterns.
Yeah, there are usually about 4 key features, like building blocks, that you see again and again. They shape the whole message.
Okay, lay them out for us. What's the first one? You mentioned this contradictory identity thing.
Pillar number 1 is this constant back and forth. China as both the victim and the savior. It's almost like a religious story.
How does that work?
Well, they constantly talk about history, right? The century of humiliation, how China was exploited, invaded, suffered terribly. That's the victim part. But then, simultaneously, the current government, the party, is presented as the only force, the indispensable savior that rescued the nation from all that, pulled everyone out of poverty, restored China's place in the world.
Ah, I see. So it's like an emotional contract. We saved you from that terrible past, so you owe us everything now. Loyalty, obedience.
Exactly. It creates this huge emotional debt.
Yeah.
And that historical suffering, it becomes the justification for being really assertive, even aggressive today. It's like, we suffered, so now we deserve to be strong, and nobody can criticize us.
Okay, that makes sense. What's the second feature?
The second one is using insulting language against other countries or talking about how other places are awaiting liberation.
Like the paper tiger thing you mentioned.
Yeah, that's part of it, but it goes further. You see state officials calling foreign leaders clowns or running dogs or accusing them of being thieves.
That definitely changes the tone. It stops being about policy and becomes personal attacks.
Totally. It's an ad hominem strategy. The goal is to just trash the opponent's credibility. If the leader of another country is just a clown, why should ordinary Chinese people listen to anything they say, especially criticism? It erodes trust in outside voices.
Makes sense. And the third feature, this must be the one that really worries the neighbors, the reframing of conflict.
Yes, that's crucial. Pillar 3 is how military aggression gets repackaged as righteous recovery of supposedly historical territory.
So things like moves against Taiwan or in the South China Sea or on the border with India, they don't call it aggression internally.
Never. Not in their narrative. It's always framed as recovering what was lost or defending sacred land or even just finishing a civil war that never officially ended. They give it a different name.
So by changing the words, you change the morality. If I take my neighbor's lawnmower but call it reclaiming ancestral gardening tools, it sounds better, right? Even if it's still theft.
Precisely. It gives the action this noble goal, national unity, historical mission. It wipes away the label of aggression under international law. It makes military action seem not just acceptable, but like a duty.
Wow. Okay. And the last one, the safety net.
The fourth pillar is the ultimate conversation stopper, the binary trap for critics. Any criticism, any negative comment about China is immediately labeled as either being brainwashed by the U.S. or as treasonous.
The classic, you're either with us or against us, but with specific labels.
Exactly. There's no room for nuance, no possibility of legitimate internal disagreement or valid external critique. If you criticize, you're automatically put in one of those two boxes, foreign puppet or traitor to the nation.
That basically destroys your credibility before you even start talking. Makes any real discussion impossible.
That's the design. Specific song examples and controversies.
Okay, so those 4 pillars are like the blueprint for the message. Now let's connect it to the actual music, like the song Micky sent you. What are some specific examples we should know about?
Well, a really striking one is how they're using a classic song, My Motherland. This is a beloved piece, genuinely respected across generations in China. It's like, they're America the Beautiful, maybe. Deep cultural roots.
Okay, a cherished song. So what's happening to it?
Now you see these online versions popping up everywhere. They call them the military edition or the Taiwan special, and they've tweaked them.
Tweaked how?
The adapted lyrics, or sometimes just the videos they pair with the original song, will have really clear hints, sometimes outright statements that Taiwan will eventually come home, often released right alongside official state media campaigns about Taiwan.
So they're taking this nostalgic, unifying song and turning it into a threat.
That's exactly how it's perceived outside, especially in Taiwan. It feels like they're weaponizing cultural heritage, turning a beloved song into part of the psychological pressure campaign. It's seen as a musical prelude to invasion.
That's unsettling. Are there newer songs too?
Oh, yeah. Lots of them. Often slickly produced, promoted heavily on platforms like doing their TikTok and state TV, CCTV. Songs with titles like The Motherland Will Not Forget You or Our Territory Cannot Be Less.
What's the angle in those? Still direct threats.
Sometimes less direct, more emotional manipulation. They use these really heavy metaphors, trying to tap into a sense of, like, national sadness or incompleteness.
Give me an example. How do they make geopolitics emotional?
They'll use lines like, the wind in the South China Sea is calling for its children. See? It turns a territorial dispute into a family drama. Or this incredibly potent one, Taiwan is the mother's tears.
Wow, the mother's tears.
Right. It frames unification not just as politics or strategy, but as emotional healing. Like the nation itself is wounded, crying, incomplete until Taiwan is brought back. It makes taking Taiwan seem like a moral necessity, an act of emotional compensation for the suffering motherland.
That's deeply manipulative. It creates this feeling that it has to happen for the nation to be whole.
Exactly. And that brings us back to where you started with the paper tiger rhetoric. We need to remember where that came from.
Mao Zedong, right, during the Cold War.
Yes. Back then, it was a way to boost morale, to downplay the perceived threat from the U.S. when China felt much weaker. A psychological tool.
Kind of like whistling past the graveyard, projecting confidence you don't fully feel.
Kind of. But now, younger generations are picking it up. It's in rap songs, short video memes, influencer rants, but it's often totally disconnected from, actual current geopolitics.
So it's just a slogan now.
It's become this easy, punchy way to push the narrative. China's rising, the U.S. is falling, it's inevitable. It's like the ultimate confidence-boosting catchphrase, whether the facts back it up or not.
The perfect online comeback for a nationalist, even if it doesn't really mean much in the real world. Like dropping the mic, but the mic isn't plugged in.
Something like that, yeah.
Okay, let's dig a bit deeper into those two core narratives you mentioned, the victim and the savior. Because understanding how they work together is key to seeing why this music is so powerful internally.
Right, they feed each other constantly. It's like a perpetual motion machine generating political loyalty. The victim narrative, never forget national humiliation.
We know the phrase century of humiliation, but what's the purpose of hammering that narrative so hard right now in modern China? What period are we talking about exactly?
Generally, it runs from the Opium Wars back in the 1840s all the way through World War II, so about 100 years. It covers invasions, unfair treaties, foreign powers carving up spheres of influence, immense suffering, the collapse of the old imperial system.
And this isn't just a history lesson, is it? It's more active than that.
Oh, much more. It's drilled into people through school, museums, movies, TV shows, memorials, and now very effectively through these songs and online content. It's constantly kept alive.
It sounds less like remembering history and more like deliberately keeping a wound open.
That's a good way to put it, because the strategic goal is to cultivate this deep, almost instinctive defensive nationalism. Keep the memory of past suffering fresh and painful.
Why? What does that achieve today?
It means that any criticism China faces today about trade, human rights, military actions, whatever, can be immediately interpreted through that historical lens. It's not seen as legitimate critique. It's seen as the West trying to keep us down again, or foreign powers bullying us just like they did before.
So if, say, the UN raises concerns about Xinjiang, the program response isn't, let's look into that. It's, this is just another attack. They want to weaken us.
Exactly. It forms this automatic shield against any external criticism. And that defensiveness, in turn, is used to justify needing a super strong military and absolute internal unity. The message becomes, we're surrounded by enemies, past and present, so we must stick together, obey the party, and be ready. #TagPB beat the savior narrative. Great national rejuvenation.
Okay, so if the nation is constantly portrayed as this victim, always under threat, who's the hero? Who rescued them?
That role is exclusively claimed by the Communist Party. That's the heart of the great national rejuvenation story. They take full credit for everything positive since 1949.
Lifting people out of poverty, economic growth, handling crises like COVID eventually.
All of it. They position themselves as the sole reason China escaped the humiliation and became strong again. And this narrative isn't just about feeling proud. It's the bedrock of their political legitimacy.
It's basically saying, look what we delivered. We earned the right to rule unchallenged.
Precisely. And that claim legitimacy extends beyond borders. It provides the moral justification for their territorial ambitions, too. The story isn't just about getting rich. It's about restoring China to its rightful place as a central global power.
And that restoration involves taking back territory.
Crucially, yes. The narrative frames this rejuvenation as incomplete, fundamentally flawed, until certain territories, specifically Taiwan, areas in the South China Sea, disputed borders are under Beijing's control. These aren't just political goals, they're presented as essential steps to finally heal the historical wounds and complete the national destiny.
So the victim story creates the fear and defensiveness, and the savior story provides the solution and the justification for action.
Exactly. Put them together, and you get this powerful loop. Constant vigilance against external enemies and absolute loyalty to the internal savior. It's a very effective system for mobilizing public opinion and justifying state power. The language of aggression and thought control.
Let's talk about the words themselves. Because in this game, language isn't just descriptive, it's a tool. It shapes reality, especially when you're trying to mask uncomfortable truths.
Absolutely. This is where you see the mechanics of propaganda really clearly, how they can take an action and, just by naming it differently, change its entire moral feel, redefining invasion as righteous recovery.
Okay, standard international understanding. You send your military across a recognized border, that's aggression. How does that get translated inside China to sound, okay, even noble?
It gets completely reframed through that historical victim lens we talked about. Military actions aimed at Taiwan, or building islands in the South China Sea, or pushing on the Indian border internally, these are never called aggression or invasion.
So what do they call it?
The terms are always things like recovering lost territory, defending sovereignty based on ancient claims, or maybe continuing the civil war against separatists. Sometimes it's framed as reunification.
It shifts the whole narrative, doesn't it? An invader's a bad guy. But someone recovering something sounds like they're just taking back what's rightfully theirs.
Exactly. The action gets wrapped in this big, morally charged mission, achieving national unity, fulfilling a historical destiny, restoring territorial integrity. This language essentially erases the concept of aggression as understood under international law. For the audience at home, it makes potential conflict seem not just acceptable, but like a sacred obligation. And the awaiting liberation claim.
And what about the name-calling? The clowns, the running dogs, we see that constantly from officials and online. What's the strategic point of being so insulting?
It's pure legitimacy destruction. The goal is to utterly debase the opponent in the eyes of the domestic audience.
How so?
If you can successfully paint a foreign leader who criticizes your policies as just a ridiculous clown or a domestic critic as a paid running dog for foreigners, you've bypassed the need to actually argue with them.
You don't need to refute their points if you've already convinced people they're not worth listening to.
Right. It transforms the interaction from a potential policy debate into a simple moral judgment. This person is bad, stupid, corrupt, therefore nothing they say matters. It shuts down critical thinking.
And that really chilling phrase, awaiting liberation, that's aimed specifically at places like Taiwan, right? Suggesting people there are suffering need rescuing.
Yes, that's textbook psychological warfare. It's designed to frame a potential military takeover not as conquest, but as a humanitarian mission, like they'd be doing the people there a favor.
Rescuing them.
Or providing fraternal aid. By claiming the people in Taiwan or elsewhere are oppressed by their leaders or being misled or suffering under foreign influence, it creates the perfect psychological justification for intervention. We're not invading. We're fulfilling our duty to liberate our suffering brothers and sisters.
Let's revisit that fourth pillar, the binary trap for critics. You said this is maybe the most important thing for us outside to understand because it's such a neat system for shutting down debate.
It really is. It's a closed loop. It ensures that any criticism, no matter how valid or well-intentioned, gets forced into one of two boxes, and both boxes instantly discredit the speaker.
Okay, box number one was U.S. brainwashing.
Right. This is the go-to explanation for almost any criticism, whether it comes from inside China or outside. Doesn't matter if someone is complaining about pollution or if an international group questions trade practices, the default explanation is, you've been brainwashed by the Americans, or the U.S. put you up to this.
So it avoids engaging with the substance of the criticism entirely.
Completely. The focus shifts from, is this criticism valid, to who is manipulating this person? It instantly destroys the critic's credibility without ever addressing their point.
Okay. And the second box, the more dangerous one, especially for people inside or nearby.
That's the treason label. This gets slapped onto critics from Taiwan, Hong Kong, ethnic minorities like Uyghurs, or even mainland Chinese who step too far out of line. They're branded as traitors, splitists, enemies of the people.
That moves it from disagreement into the realm of crime, of national security threats.
Exactly. It uses the powerful appeal of patriotism and national unity to completely isolate and demonize dissenters. When someone is labeled a traitor, they're effectively silenced. Who's going to listen to a traitor? It makes dissent seem not just wrong, but dangerous to the nation itself.
Okay, so that's the internal machinery. But now let's look outside. Because all this loud, aggressive talk, often put to music, it's clearly not winning friends internationally, is it? It seems to be backfiring.
Massively backfiring. That's the great irony of this whole wolf warrior approach. Whether it's diplomats shouting or people singing these songs, they're trying so hard to project strength, but the main message being received is hostility and, frankly, insecurity. The neighborly reaction, fear, not admiration.
Who's feeling this most strongly? Which neighbors are getting the most nervous?
Well, countries like Japan, Vietnam, and the Philippines are definitely on high alert. They're the ones directly involved in the South China Sea disputes, or the East China Sea disputes in Japan's case. For them, these aggressive songs aren't just noise. They sound like threats directly related to contested islands and waters.
And you mentioned a specific reaction from Japan.
Yes, this was striking. Japan's major newspaper, the Asahi Shimbun, actually ran commentary comparing this rise of what they called China's war song culture. These videos of people singing aggressively patriotic songs, often in formation to 1930s Japanese militarism.
Wow. Invoking their own history like that, that's a huge statement.
It's incredibly potent. For a mainstream Japanese outlet to draw that parallel shows they're not seeing cultural confidence, they're seeing echoes of a dangerous past, a rising threat to the whole region.
That really underscores the fear factor. And what about Taiwan? They're often the direct target in the lyrics.
For people in Taiwan, these aren't just songs. They feel like invasion marches. And the impact is amplified because it doesn't happen in a vacuum. They hear these songs while also seeing PLA jets flying near their airspace almost daily, facing online disinformation campaigns. It all blends together into this sustained psychological warfare aimed at breaking their will, making them feel like resisting unification is hopeless.
And India.
Yeah.
After those border clashes a few years ago.
Yeah, after the clashes in the Himalayas, there was a surge of online Chinese content, including songs like Wolf Warrior in the Himalayas. These were often full of really exaggerated, sometimes outright false claims, designed specifically to mock the Indian military and celebrate China's perceived dominance.
So again, weaponized culture.
Exactly. Indian media called it out directly as musical war propaganda. So across Asia, the message received is clear. This isn't cultural exchange, it's a threat assessment.
What's kind of amazing, though, is how much of this stuff, which seems designed for boosting morale inside China, the self-hype leaks out.
Right. And that's where it becomes spectacular self-sabotage on the world stage. Videos of, say, military cadets singing passionately about preparing for island landing, or huge groups chanting war songs. They inevitably end up on Twitter, on YouTube.
Then the reaction outside the Great Firewall isn't exactly fear and awe, is it?
Often it's ridicule and disbelief. The attempt to look intimidating just looks bizarre or even absurd to international audiences.
Like what? What are people saying?
You see major media in the UK or Japan describing these videos as like watching WWII military songs revisited, but in a weird, unsettling way. Online comments in Europe often call it nationalistic madness. The performance of unity looks like collective hysteria from the outside.
There was that incident with the Chinese influencer insulting the Philippines too, right?
Perfect example. This influencer made a video aggressively attacking the Philippines over the South China Sea, trying to sound tough. It went viral globally, and the Filipino media's reaction, basically sarcastic thanks. Oh, thank you for reminding us. We clearly need to beef up our military budget immediately.
So the attempt to bully just made them more determined.
Exactly. Instead of scaring neighbors into submission, this kind of aggressive rhetoric actually pushes them closer together, makes them more wary of China, and more resolved to defend themselves. It's achieving the exact opposite of its likely intended effect: data on image decline.
It's not just anecdotes, though. There's hard data showing how badly this approach is damaging China's image globally.
Oh, the numbers are incredibly clear, and they're going in the wrong direction for Beijing. The Pew Research Center does regular global surveys on attitudes towards China, their 2024 data. It showed that in most major democratic nations around the world, negative views of China are now sky high. We're talking over 80% in many countries.
Over 80% negative. That's a diplomatic disaster.
It's a catastrophic failure of soft power. The global perception has totally shifted. It used to be maybe rising power, potential partner, maybe competitor. Now, the perception is increasingly negative. China isn't seen as exporting attractive culture like South Korea does with K-pop or the US with movies. It's seen as exporting anxiety.
So the brand has become associated with
aggression, brainwashing, untrustworthiness, bullying. It's moved from potentially confident to often repulsive. And this aggressive communication style, including the music, is a huge part of why that shift has happened.
Let's circle back to that phrase that kicked this off: the U.S. as a paper tiger. This idea that America looks strong but is actually weak. It's a core part of the nationalist narrative fueling these songs.
It's a very convenient slogan, lets you dismiss the world's leading power.
But let's just look at the reality for a second. Who is actually, right now, actively trying to expand their territorial control? Who is pushing boundaries and asserting claims aggressively? Who seems to want everything? Evidence of China's expansion aggression. Who is the real seeker?
Yeah, when you look at the actions, not just the words, the paper tiger accusation starts to look like projection.
Okay, case study one. The South China Sea.
China claims almost the entire sea with its 9-dash line, a claim rejected by international courts. But beyond the claim, what are they doing? They're building huge artificial islands on reefs and shoals, then putting military bases, runways, missile launchers on them.
Right in the middle of waters claimed by Vietnam, the Philippines, Malaysia, Brunei.
Exactly. That doesn't look like defense. That looks like actively seizing and militarizing contested territory. It looks like expansion.
Okay, case study two, Taiwan.
They call it an internal matter, But the strategy involves constant military pressure, those near-daily flights, buzzing Taiwan's air defense zone, plus intense economic coercion, trying to squeeze Taiwan's economy, punish businesses.
It's not exactly a gentle invitation to reunite, is it?
It's a sustained campaign of intimidation. Again, it looks like an active strategy to wear down resistance for a future takeover, not like a passive entity just waiting.
And then there are the land borders, like with India.
In those incredibly tense Himalayan border regions, the consistent reports from India and other observers are that China is the one pushing forward, building new roads, new military outposts, trying to incrementally change the facts on the ground in disputed areas.
So if you just look at the action, South China Sea, Taiwan, Himalayas, the evidence of who is actively seeking to expand their control seems pretty clear. And it's not the country being called the paper tiger, the real power.
And then there's the ultimate reality check. Money and global systems. That paper tiger insult completely falls apart when you look at the hard economic facts.
Go on.
Okay, global finance. Forget the talk about the yuan replacing the dollar anytime soon. Right now, the US dollar makes up almost 60% of all the foreign currency reserves held by central banks around the world. 60%. That's the world's savings account, basically.
And the Chinese yuan?
It's less than 3%. A huge gap. And power isn't just cash, it's influence, institutions. The U.S. still has, by far, the strongest military. And critically, it has the most extensive network of alliances, NATO alliances with Japan, South Korea, Australia, the Philippines.
Alliances that are actually getting stronger and coordinating more specifically because of concerns about China's actions.
Exactly. The U.S. alliance system is a massive source of global power and stability, and it's being reinforced by China's own behavior. Plus, you look at things like R&D spending, leading universities, cultural influence, soft power. The U.S. still holds enormous advantages.
So financially, militarily, institutionally, the paper tiger claim just doesn't match reality, like wishful thinking or, again, internal cheerleading.
It's rhetoric designed for domestic consumption, not a reflection of global reality.
Okay, so we've looked at the music, the strategy, the backlash, the reality check. Now, let's bring it home for you, the listener. How should you process all this? How do you hear these aggressive songs or read the rhetoric without just getting angry or scared?
I think the key is understanding the psychology behind it. Why is this happening? If you understand the driver, you can react more rationally. Internal anxiety is the driver.
You mentioned that term, SEI, self-hype, earlier. Why is that collective performance of aggressive patriotism so necessary right now in China?
Fundamentally, it's often seen as an outlet. Think about it. If you live in a system where you can't really criticize the government openly, maybe you're worried about the economy, youth unemployment's high, there are lockdowns, whatever, where does that frustration go?
It has to go somewhere.
Exactly. It gets projected outward. It's much safer to blame foreigners, to get angry at the US or Japan or Taiwan, than to question decisions made at home. So this aggressive nationalism becomes a way to vent internal pressures.
So it's like a pressure valve. Blame the outside world for internal problems.
It serves that function. It provides this temporary, satisfying fantasy of emotional release. You feel strong, united against the enemy, but from the outside, it looks like insecurity, like defensiveness, like a lack of control. Truly confident countries don't need to shout this loud. The loudness is often a sign of underlying anxiety. The information cocoon and lack of perspective.
It's also important, though, not to just paint every Chinese citizen with the same brush, right? Not everyone singing these songs is necessarily a diehard aggressor.
Absolutely crucial point. Many ordinary people, especially younger ones creating content online, are operating inside the Great Firewall. They're in an information bubble.
So they might not even realize how this looks to the outside world.
Exactly. Their education system heavily emphasizes patriotism equals loyalty to the party. Their news sources are controlled. They genuinely might not grasp how negative the reaction is globally to what they see as just being patriotic or having fun. They lack the external perspective because it's filtered out.
They think they're being cool and strong, but the signal received internationally is threatening or just weird.
Their feedback loop is entirely domestic. They see likes and shares within China and think they're winning, unaware that they might be doing serious damage to their country's image abroad. Many aren't malicious. They're just products of the information environment they live in. Building a psychological firewall, advice to the listener.
Okay, so knowing all this, how do we protect ourselves mentally? If we're bombarded with this stuff online or in the news, how do we build our own psychological firewall?
First, and maybe most important, maintain a spectator view. Try to watch it almost like a sociologist. See the aggressive rhetoric, the war songs, not as proof of strength, but as symptoms of internal fear and state anxiety. Detach emotionally. A truly strong nation uses diplomacy, not fight songs.
Okay, detach. What else?
Second, defeat emotion with data. Resist the urge to get into shouting matches or feel outraged. When you hear the paper tiger stuff, don't just get mad. Calmly bring out the facts.
Like the currency reserve numbers, the alliance strengths.
Exactly. Use verifiable data to gently expose the gap between the rhetoric and the reality. Facts are the best antidote to emotional propaganda.
Good one. And third?
Third, use wit and satire as a shield. Don't let the negativity drag you down. Sometimes the claims are so absurd, the best response is calm, maybe slightly witty pushback that highlights the absurdity.
How would that work? Give me an example. Someone says, "We're coming to liberate you." What's the witty response?
You could say something calm like, "Oh, thanks for the offer, but, if liberation involves giving up access to Google and YouTube, I think I'll pass." Or maybe, "Appreciate the thought, but my internet's actually working fine today, thanks."
Use humor to point out the freedoms they implicitly threaten.
Right. It deflates the aggression, turns it into something almost laughable, and keeps you from getting sucked into their frame. It reasserts your own perspective.
So, spectator view, data over emotion, and wit as a shield. That makes sense.
Ultimately, we need to shift how we think about this. See it less as just an emotional tit-for-tat, and more as an ongoing international education issue. The real questions are, how do authoritarian states use culture and language to control minds? And how do we, in more open societies, build resilience against that kind of information warfare? That's a more productive way to frame it.
Well, this has been quite the journey. We started with Micky's questionable music recommendation and ended up dissecting the whole engine of nationalist propaganda.
It really shows how interconnected things are, doesn't it? But the main thing for you, listening, to take away is this. That loud, aggressive rhetoric, the self-hype music, it's more often a sign of deep internal anxiety and information control than it is of genuine strength or confidence.
It's a symptom, not necessarily the disease itself.
A sick symptom, maybe? It serves a purpose inside China, managing internal pressures, but it creates fear and hostility everywhere else.
We really hope this conversation helps you approach these complex issues with a bit more critical distance, looking at the facts and the context, rather than just reacting emotionally.
And just to be super clear, everything we talked about today was based on analyzing the public content itself, the reported reactions from neighbors, and objective data. It's not about criticizing any nation or its people as a whole. It's about understanding the political use of culture and advocating for independent thought.
Absolutely. Well, thank you for tuning in to this edition of Sip and Talk.
If you enjoyed this, please do subscribe to Sip and Talk wherever you get your audio.
And hey, check out our friend Micky's YouTube channel, Micky to Life. He's got fun memes, sometimes does liquor tasting, and posts his latest European travel vlogs. Always entertaining stuff over there.
Definitely check him out.
Thanks again for listening. We'll see you next time.
Yeah. Sip and Talkers, don't worry. Sunny's not actually mad. She's just doing a little performance for the show. See you later. Love you.